Welcome everyone. This is the last but not the least of the sessions. I think we're in an industry where cash is the king. This topic, innovative financing, meeting capital needs through investment structures, is an extremely important one. When I was coming here, I was thinking, how do I introduce my panel? Should I go left to right? Should I go alphabetically? And then I realized, look, let's be sensible. Let's first introduce the big guys with the money and the checkbook. So it doesn't matter whether developers are doing about 25 or 45 or 75 million square feet, really getting their hands dirty. Really, they really have to wait in the queue today. So, of course, the gentleman with 3 decades of experience in financing real estate, who has been responsible for several projects across the country, Mr. K.G. Krishnamurthy. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for him, and it's quite an honor for me to meet him personally for the first time. All right, who do I go to next? I'm telling you it's money-wise. Simple. Mr. Khushru Jijina, Managing Director, Piramal Fund Management, one of the most respected names in the Indian PE industry. Manages funds of 7,550 crores. I hope I got that figure right. No? No? Okay.
It's more than 2 billion.
It's more than 2 billion. All right, more than 2 billion, including several domestic funds, so I stand corrected. There's also a proprietary debt book. What is proprietary? Something that I'll understand, because I'll try and understand. I couldn't. If you need any kind of money, and this is the list, okay? Private equity, structured equity, mezzanine equity, structured debt, senior secured debt, construction debt. That's a long list. These are the guys to go to. But remember, Mr. Jijina is used to 24% IRR, okay? So if you can't underwrite that, don't bother. No, I'm very serious. Am I wrong? No. He's very serious, very, very serious. Now, if you're a developer who wants bigger money, where do you go? Well, if you can ensure 40% IRR, then Vishal Kumar, MD Xander Investment Management, is your guy. Seriously. I mean, how does this happen? Somebody comes in 2006, it's a frothy, bubbly market, about 160 funds leave India, lose their shirt, but these guys are still standing with 2 billion. Now, 2 billion deployed? 2.4, okay. So, Xander, very interesting portfolio, one of the rare ones who've actually taken a call to go with malls when e-commerce has become the buzzword, and continue to stick with it, and hospitality. So, big round of applause, guys, for somebody who's really done well with Indian real estate. We also have the small and nimble players, Balaji Raghavan, CEO, India Infoline, Alternate Assets. They might be small gentlemen compared to the other big daddies, but remember, they're nimbler, smarter, and 1,000 crore plus is big money for industry, right? No? So don't ignore them at all. And now the developers. Abhishek Lodha, MD Lodha Group, who's changed the housing landscape of Mumbai, clearly number 1 in sales, beat the NCR biggies hollow. And coming from NCR, that hurts, but in a good way. And of course, what have they done during this period where they've taken their revenues up 13.4 to over 8,000 crores? Don't tell me I got that wrong, Abhishek. Finally, I didn't get a number wrong. Okay, Shailesh Puranik, MD Puranik Builders, 15 million square feet under development, 30 million square feet in the pipeline. So these are the men who get their hands dirty, but still, the debate is between those who are writing the checks and those who are actually building India. Very interesting discussion and debate. So ladies and gentlemen, let's start. Now, the number which has been making the headlines, 2.4 billion US dollars, 53 PE deals in the first 9 months of 2015. What's driving this renewed optimism is my big question. Sir, let's start with you, Mr. Krishnamurthy. What is it? I mean, is there a cyclical shift in perception that, yes, the worst is over?
On a lighter note, with your permission, if you are talking about innovative funding mechanisms, today all the banks, institutions NBFCs are all adopting mechanisms on how to protect their book. There is no innovative funding mechanism coming into the market, but everybody is attempting to how to protect your existing book, thus avoid defaults. That is where we are. Now, I'm not blaming the developers, I'm not blaming anybody, but the current situation is such that the markets have been really bad. There are no transactions happening. The investors are generally out. So today, a bank is funding another project to protect a default against the existing project, or a bank is requesting a non-banking finance company to take out that loan so that to protect its own books, or in some situations, good money is chasing bad money so that the project completes and recovers. Now, here, I don't think the developers are at fault, or, we will address that everybody says the developers have to bring down the rates. But having said that, everybody needs to know today the cost to the developer in terms of approvals. Forget the borrowings they do. The cost to the developers in terms of approvals, the premiums they have to pay, the fungible FSI they have to buy, everything is so expensive that their own margins are very, very thin. So expecting developers to, of course there are certain pockets where developers can bring down the price. However, in general, the costs are so high, the construction costs have gone up, the approval time, the time factor hurts every project. And in addition to the construction costs have been very high, the margins are very, very thin. So in this situation, while the money is chasing, most of the money is going towards replacing an existing debt rather than going into newer projects as genuine equity.
Mr. Jijna, is that correct? I mean, it's pretty much replacement money which is coming in. Fresh cycle of money is yet to come in?
So I will answer it slightly differently. While KG is right in most of what he's saying, but yes, slightly differently, we are seeing the market slightly differently, especially from October. Just to give you an example, up to September last year, I think 90-95% of my 2,000 crores plus per month disbursement was debt. But from October onwards, we have seen the shift. The big developers, we are partnering, we have actually started giving private equity money. So today, as I speak, I would break the ratio month-on-month disbursement into, say, 65-35. 35% is going for private equity. So I'm not in full agreement because we are actually, but yes, there's lots to be done. If the economy has to grow 7-8%, the real estate has to grow. It's the reverse. It's not that if the economy grows, we will grow. Only if the real estate, which is the second largest employment and a very large weightage in the GDP, grows, then the economy will grow. So if we believe that the economy is growing, real estate has to grow.
So is that the biggest reason you think that there is such a big rush of PE investment flowing in?
See, the money which has started flowing primarily from overseas is basically going towards core assets. Obviously, because having burned their fingers, they want to go into core assets, which is safer, etc. But yes, there is a shift which is happening, which is very gradual. We are seeing from the pyramids that there are pension funds who are approaching us on the residential space now. Hopefully, we should make some announcement in the next couple of months.
All right, okay. Vishal Kumar, is that your impression as well? Because if I look at, the monies deployed by Xander, they have been tilted largely towards the office space.
I think apart from the points that you've mentioned, a couple of other things are happening across the world. One is that yields across the world are down, really down. And, pension funds and big institutional investors are earning 1%, 0.5%, 0.7% on their capital. And so they are thinking, how can we get 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% and take a little bit of risk. And for those kind of investors, commercial assets in India sometimes make sense. Because you might go in at a 10 yield or 11 yield, but eventually and in dollars, it'll result in a 3 or 4 yield. And that money is kind of looking at India, and of course, added to that is the fact that, India economy is growing, the government has changed, everybody hopes that rents will go up, the IT sector will do better, and cap rates will come down over a period of time as interest rates come down. So that's one part of and a large part of the reason for interest in core assets into India. The other interest is coming from investors who believe, as you said, that the market is down. A lot of developers are stressed, so you can get good deals, you can get good bargains. The third thing that is happening is that professional investors like us or, KG sir or Khushru have learned the lessons over the last 10 years. So institutional investors feel more comfortable now deploying money into India. They know that these managers know how to deploy the money, know how to protect our interests, know what kind of rights you want to get. And on top of that, you add the fact that you can get good deal, you can get good returns, you can structure deals in such a manner that you're protected, and then of course the option of core assets and all is there. So a lot of these things are happening overall. But the real risk investor, risk money that was coming back in 2006-07, where people were coming in, buying land, and then without any approvals or not with very established developers, that's not back, and it's not going to be back for a long time.
Balaji, are domestic funds willing to take higher risks, or they are even more conservative and shorter term in terms of
I
their
don't think so,
window?
because domestic funds are essentially domestic investors, I would say, who have a far better understanding of the domestic market. So therefore, it's probably easier to raise money from domestic investors, where the risks and rewards both are higher, I would say. One is that. Second is that, see, coming to the point which KG made on, replacement money and so on. Now, I also believe that, unfortunately, I guess our markets are not deep enough that, let's say, if a project and the approval cycles and the sales cycle, etc., take maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, now you really don't have that kind of money available. Now, today, for example, I want to, let's say, as a developer, go and, invest in a slum or purchase land, I get a different kind of capital, now, which is higher in cost. So at some point in time, I really want to go and replace it after maybe 2, 3 years, etc. So it's a 6, 7 year cycle which the capital sees. So therefore, you will have different players, you will have replacements which will happen, and probably that is good for the market and for investors, for different investor classes.
Abhishek Lodha, now the turn of the developers.
All right,
So what's really going on? I mean, all these headline numbers, they sound really good, but then when I speak to developers, things aren't easy at all. When you really look at residential space, there has been a little bit of turnaround, definitely in commercial assets, but if you were to stand today and look at the way the industry is getting financed, what are the biggest challenges that the developers face today?
I think the industry since 2012 is going through quite a large internal shift where there is a flight to quality. And so you see that there is a large number of developers, the industry has a large number of participants. And you're seeing over time that more and more market share is going towards organized or credible players because customers are becoming risk wary. They don't want to take under construction risk with players unless they are completely satisfied that this project is going to get built largely on time and the quality is going to get good. And equally what's happening is that the financial partners also want to participate with more or less the same set of developers because they want their money to earn good returns and in a timely manner. So over time, while you read the headline numbers and you talk about large amounts of inventory, etc., the way statistics are kept in India, anytime a project announcement is made, it starts getting counted as inventory. Now, whether that project has the approvals in place, whether it has the financing in place, whether customers are going to finance it along the way by buying under construction, a lot of questions are on the way. So about, one year is about 40, 42 months of inventory in some of the larger markets in the country. But out of that, about half is unlikely to ever get fully built out. And when you start looking at the information in detail, you see what is the stock available of finished goods. Most other industries, inventory is counted as the finished goods stocks available. So if you look at ready units available in the marketplace for residential, you're talking about somewhere between 2 to 5%. So you're talking about a situation where the economy is moving up well and the government's taking a lot of steps to further improve it. Interest rates are on the way down and stock of finished goods is very minimal. Now, is this the best or a good time to buy? I think from my perspective, and that's what we're seeing, that with good credible players, this is a good time to buy.
Shailesh, do you also think or ponder about the same things? The housing requirement is so high. Right now, bank financing is very limited for the real estate sector. Going forward, how much do you think private equity what bigger role will private equity play? Do you think long-term capital will come in now that the beginnings have been made? This will accelerate?
Manisha, just to go back one point, you have been saying that everybody's saying it's tough market out there. We developers are tough lot of players. So when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So we are all going now. And that's why you see a lot of developments happening. One, at government, you have stable government. Everybody's happy. Everybody's optimistic what is going to happen. Economy is looking up. Not so much happening outside India. If you look at the world, there are not many options available to investors. large foreign players, pension funds, what you're talking about, 0.5%, 1% is, unheard of in India. So all this is happening and all this is, getting channelized to few countries. One of them is, of course, India. But we do need patient capital. We do need a lot of equity because traditionally the real estate industry as it is, you need large sums of capital at initial stages, at land buying stages. The challenges that we have today, we still don't get anything from banks, which is cheaper mode of finance for land buying today. So we need, the only other option is equity. Right now, what is happening from some of the players, people are talking about that equity is coming in, and when you sit across the table, the term sheet comes in and it is equity, but in the, the term sheet below is all talking about debt. On the face of it, they are saying equity. But having said that, last 6 months, maybe not for a year, but last 6 months, what we have seen personally, that a lot of equity players have started talking. Existing debt players have started talking about equity. Everybody understands as it is happening, it's more mature capital now.
Vishal, come in here and just run us through a couple of innovations that Xander has done in India.
I think most of the innovations that have happened, which Khushru mentioned, a couple of other examples that I can think of, CMBS, or fund setting up NBFCs like we have done, are all basically designed to address the needs of the developer at that given point of time. I remember in 2008-9, there was no fund giving cash outs to developers, for example, when we invested, whereas we in 2009-10 started giving cash outs because we realized that that's why the developer really wants to do the deal. He wants cash out, he wants money out of the project so that he can invest in other deals. So we figured out some structures to, do that. Similarly, going into operating assets, for example, they were not a big deal in 2009, whereas now then funds like us, Blackstone or us, realized that there was an opportunity to be handled there because banks were in at 12 or 13%, whereas we could manage with 9 or 10. And so we found the source of lower cost money and replaced the banks to a large extent. So, generally speaking, smart people work in the finance sector. And my experience has been that then when they are faced with the problem over a period of time, they figure out a solution.
All right, smart people on this side and gritty people on that side. Absolutely, okay. All right, Abhishek, let's look forward. I mean, we all know what has happened, challenges, no challenges. Everyone has to go through challenges, and I think businesses have to go through challenges constantly. What is it that you would like to see in terms of cash or funds available for real estate for all of you to do your job well?
You'll see that on an ongoing basis, if an industry is important, is economically remunerative, you will see different forms of financing come in. Money will go to select players, they will go to the quality players, that's fine, but the money will come in. I don't think that in an economy which is going to grow and a sector which is going to contribute to it, money is going to be a long-term challenge. There may be short-term ups and downs. I think one of the other good phenomenons that we have in country, and which is why even with a very small capital or equity base the country's been able to build so much real estate, is the fact that customers participate in financing the construction cost by paying while going along. They get a better deal at the start, and at the same time the overall equity requirement either from the developer or from other sources becomes minimal. I think what's important in this process is that customers have become risk scared, and hence they are doing it with a limited set of developers. But if the government or some other institution can come forward with some form of a deposit insurance mechanism, wherein the monies put in by flat buyers can be secured in a manner which they monitor. The government is proposing a 50% retention of the monies towards construction costs, etc. I think that will give an additional boost of confidence to the general buyers that their money is secure, constantly improve the confidence in buying real estate at early stages, and that will in itself lead to a cycle which increase demand, more money coming in, more construction happening.
It's nice to see that developers also support a mechanism to restore the confidence, Shailesh, of the buyer. There has been, call it challenges of approvals, call it challenges of funding, but there has been some crisis of trust, more so in North India, NCR specifically, and that needs to be restored. But let's move to your view of next 5 years, financing challenges for the industry, and how those can be overcome.
I would really like to see, you have to take the other view completely. Today, if I sell my apartment at say X price, if 10,000 rupees per square feet. I take around average 2.5 to 3 years to construct that apartment, and then I have booked that sale today, which is 10,000 rupees. My construction cost goes up. My land cost today is say 5,000 rupees. By the time I have given him the possession, it becomes say 10,000 rupees. So I keep on losing the capital portion of it, the investor portion of it. I would really like to see that I would be able to sell. There should be innovative ways of financing in which I can sell only at the time of possession. Why don't we think like that? That means if I have finance available at a really nominal rate, my approvals are insured, I get approvals in time, I have technology to build on time, in time, then I would really like to sell when the apartments are ready. Right now, my finances are limited. My capital requirement is so huge that I'm always stretched. So I cannot sell when it is about to be ready, or it is getting ready, or completely ready possession.
All right, gentlemen, we will do a big handshake on that both these groups will work together and build India. Seriously, I mean, the numbers which are required to meet that ambitious goal for housing for all is a big one. And if the government doesn't do its part, private sector in India anyway thrives with or without the government, isn't it? So everybody will end up doing their bit. Thank you very much
for this opportunity.